The Civil War Amendments, presented by the Center County Constitution Day Committee, the State College NAACP, and Strategies for Justice. The first major change to the Constitution after the passage of the Bill of Rights focused on emancipating, empowering, and making full citizens of the recently liberated enslaved African people. Lincoln's executive order, the Emancipation Proclamation, took effect in January 1863. But only enslaved people in those states where the Union had no real jurisdiction were emancipated. More importantly, the proclamation gave authority for the Army to enlist African Americans as combat soldiers. This proved to be very effective. Of the 240,000 troops enlisted from 1863 until the end of the war in 1865, 180,000 were African Americans. The participation of these soldiers of color were essential to the Union's victory and gaining freedom for their people.
It was clear that the Union was going to win the Civil War and that the slavocracy was going to collapse. What wasn't clear was what was to be done with the 4 million African Americans who had been held in bondage since before the beginning of the Republic. After his re-election in 1864, President Lincoln made it a priority of his administration to pass the 13th Amendment, which would legally, constitutionally, and irretrievably abolish the institution of slavery. The United States House of Representatives approved the 13th Amendment proposal on January 31st, 1865. Lincoln sent the amendment for ratification on February 1st. Unfortunately, he did not live to see it adopted on December 6, 1865. The 13th Amendment read, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for the crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction." Section 2, Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
The African American was freed from the former bond of legal slavery. But those who had held him in bondage were not willing to allow blacks full participation as citizens. Great wealth had been accumulated through centuries of unpaid forced African labor. The cultivation of cotton was the primary economic building block of America. Those who wished to eradicate not only slavery, but also the practices of white supremacy formulated the Second Civil War Amendment, the 14th, on July 9th, 1868. It read, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." Section 204 authorized the federal government to punish states that violated or abridged their citizens' right to vote by proportionally reducing the state's representation in Congress, and mandated that anyone who engaged in insurrection against the United States could not hold civil, military, or elected office. Section 5 gave Congress the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provision of the article. The 14th Amendment is the most important article to the Constitution outside of the Bill of Rights. It grants full citizenship to all people born in America. It also empowers and protects individuals when they are in conflict with the national and state governments. Historically, the purpose of the amendments was to protect the rights of the recently emancipated African Americans. However, in its language, Congress did not specifically limit its protection to Black people, but applied the rights of life, liberty, property, and equal protection of the law to all persons under its jurisdiction. The Supreme Court has used the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment as a basis of many decisions dealing with constitutional rights, such as
in Gitlow v. New York, The court stated that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment protected the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech from infringement from the state as well as the federal government. In Brown v. Board of Education, the court ruled segregated public schools violated the 14th Amendment. In cases involving the use of contraception, 1965's Griswold versus Connecticut, interracial marriage, 1967's Loving v. Virginia, abortion, 1973 Roe v. Wade, a highly contested presidential election, 2000's Bush v. Gore, gun rights, 2010's McDonald versus Chicago, and same-sex marriage, 2015's Obergil versus Hodges. In all those cases, the 14th Amendment was used to justify the extension of civil and constitutional rights.
However, forces continued to push back against African Americans trying to gain full equality and justice. They attempted to deny Blacks political power by denying them the right to vote. In 1870, Congress attempted to remedy that situation by passing the 15th Amendment, which stated, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude." Unfortunately, the forces of white supremacy and institutional racism used other means to oppress Black citizens. It wasn't until the 1965 Voting Rights Act that African Americans had full access to the franchise in many Southern states. Meanwhile, the access to voting for all citizens was extended to women through the 19th Amendment, abolishing the poll tax by the 24th Amendment in 1962, and to 18-year-olds by the 26th Amendment in 1971.
These three Civil War amendments were instrumental in laying the tracks for emancipation, empowerment, and enfranchisement of the long enslaved Africans in America. But it was the people who drove the train. The people, yes, we the people.
We, the people.
We, the people.
We, the people.
We the people of the United States. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice,
Ensure domestic tranquility. Provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare.
And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain
And establish this Constitution for the United States of America.